Deep in the southern reaches of New Jersey, the Pine Barrens cover more than 1 million acres across 7 counties. The soil is sandy and acidic, largely hostile to conventional farming. The water runs dark brown from the tannins of cedar roots. The forests are dense, ancient, and disorienting. For 3 centuries, people have been telling each other something lives in these woods, something that screams in the dark, something that kills livestock and leaves behind tracks no field guide can explain, something with wings, with hooves, with the face of a horse and the appetite of a predator, something that has never been caught, never been photographed with any certainty, and never been proven to exist. They call it the Jersey Devil, and its story stretches from colonial politics to mass hysteria to a photograph that made national news in 2015. It touches on real history, real people, and hundreds of real witnesses who stepped forward over the course of nearly 300 years. The Pine Barrens sit in sharp contrast to the rest of New Jersey, a state most people associate with dense urban development and the industrial corridor of the northeastern megalopolis. Yet right in the middle of the most densely populated state in the country, this enormous wilderness has remained largely intact for centuries. The few communities that did take root inside the Barrens became isolated and insular, and the people who lived there, known sometimes by the not always kind nickname of Pineys, developed their own traditions, their own culture, and their own stories. Long before European settlers arrived, the Lenni Lenape people inhabited this region. They had a name for the area around what is now Burlington County. They called it Popusing, a word that translates roughly as place of the dragon. When Swedish explorers followed the same waterways in the 17th century, they gave the area a name of their own, Drake Kill, combining a Dutch term for a body of water with the Swedish word for dragon. 2 completely separate cultures, arriving independently, looked at the same piece of land and arrived at the same idea. Something about the Pine Barrens suggested the presence of a creature that did not belong to the ordinary world. The origin story most people associate with the Jersey Devil begins in 1735, in a settlement called Leeds Point in what is now Atlantic County. The story centers around a woman known to history simply as Mother Leeds. Depending on which version you hear, she was a Quaker woman, a sorceress, or simply an exhausted and impoverished mother on the edge of despair. The story says she was pregnant for the 13th time. Some accounts say she cursed the child before it was born, calling out in frustration that if she was to have yet another child, let it be the devil. Other versions say the curse came from someone else, a gypsy she had refused to feed, the townspeople who condemned her for an illicit relationship with a British soldier. On a stormy night in 1735, in a small house lit only by candles, Mother Leeds went into labor. The child was born normal. Then the transformation began. According to legend, the infant grew rapidly, its body stretching and reshaping. Its face elongated into something resembling a horse. Its back tore open as 2 leathery wings unfolded. Its feet hardened into cloven hooves. A forked tail grew from the base of its spine. The creature let out a shriek that shook the walls, attacked everyone in the room, and then launched itself up the chimney and out into the storm. The Jersey Devil, or as it was known for well over a century before that name took hold, the Leeds Devil was born. This is a legend blended with some truth, because there was a real Leeds family and they were real people. Daniel Leeds arrived in New Jersey in 1677. He was a Quaker, a man of standing and ambition. He began publishing almanacs in 1687, and the content he chose to include in those publications, astrological charts, occult symbols, material that the Quaker community considered diabolical, earned him immediate condemnation from his congregation. They called him a tool of the devil. Daniel Leeds did not back down, and neither did his family after he died. In 1720, the Leeds family crest featured a wyvern, a winged dragon-like creature that bears a striking resemblance to the Jersey Devil as described in later accounts. When Daniel's son Titan began printing this crest on his almanacs in 1728, it gave visual form to the reputation his family had already been saddled with for decades. Then came Benjamin Franklin, who was publishing Poor Richard's Almanac. Franklin saw Titan Leeds as a competitor to be neutralized. Franklin's weapon of choice was ridicule. He published a prediction that Titan Leeds would die on a specific date. When Leeds did not die on that date and objected furiously, Franklin simply declared that the real Titan Leeds must have died as predicted, and that this angry, living person was therefore a ghost. Franklin kept calling him a ghost in print, year after year, long after the joke had worn thin. This characterization filtered directly into the regional folklore already building around the family name. By the 19th century, the phrase Leeds Devil was in common circulation across the Pine Barrens. The historian Brian Regal of Keene University argues that the legend emerged not from a single dramatic birth in 1735, but from accumulated animosity directed at the Leeds family. The story of the monstrous 13th child, Regal suggests, was a piece of folklore that crystallized much later around a family that had already been made into monsters by their community. But people were seeing a strange creature. Commodore Stephen Decatur, the celebrated American naval hero, was reportedly visiting the Hanover Mill Works in the Pine Barrens in the early 19th century to inspect cannonballs being forged there. While testing them at a firing range, Decatur spotted a flying creature crossing the sky, took aim with a cannonball, and fired directly at it. According to the account, the shot passed through the creature. The creature continued on its way without interruption. More credible as a historical matter, though still disputed by some, is the account associated with Joseph Bonaparte, the older brother of Napoleon and former King of Spain. By the 1820s, Bonaparte was living in exile in Bordentown, New Jersey on a grand estate. He was a hunter, and the Pine Barrens offered excellent game. On a solo hunting trip, he came across a set of strange tracks in the snow. The tracks had 2 hooves like a donkey but appeared to belong to a biped. He followed them, heard a hissing sound, and turned to find a creature with a horse's head, enormous wings, and legs like a large bird. Bonaparte held a rifle and chose not to use it. The creature eventually flew away. It is worth noting that Bonaparte never publicly identified what he saw as the Jersey Devil. That connection was made later by others who heard the story secondhand. Throughout the 1840s, livestock deaths in the Pine Barrens region were repeatedly attributed to the creature. Farmers reported finding their animals slaughtered in ways they could not explain, accompanied by strange tracks and, in several accounts, unearthly screaming from the surrounding woods. Similar incidents recurred in 1859, 1873, and 1887. A newspaper account from 1887 describes a Burlington County resident who encountered the Leeds Devil near his home. According to the account, the creature was shot in the wing, appeared unfazed, and departed. The week of January 16th through January 23rd, 1909, remains the most concentrated and documented period of Jersey Devil sightings ever recorded. What unfolded during those 8 days transformed the creature from a regional ghost story into a national phenomenon. It began with tracks. On January 16th, residents across Burlington County woke to find unusual prints in the snow. These were hoofed prints, but they walked in a single-file line, as if left by a biped rather than a 4-legged animal. They appeared on rooftops. They crossed over fences and reappeared on the other side without any indication of jumping. They crossed frozen rivers. They went under porches and emerged on the opposite side. Attempts to follow them ended abruptly when the tracks simply stopped, as if whatever made them had taken to the air. By January 17th, the tracks had been found in Bristol, Pennsylvania, across the Delaware River. Witnesses there reported seeing a creature in the air that same night. Word spread fast. On the 19th, Nelson Evans and his wife in Gloucester City were awakened at 2:30 in the morning by a sound outside their window. What Evans claimed to see stood roughly 3.5 feet tall, with wings about 2 feet long on each side. He described a head like a collie dog with a face like a horse, a long neck, and back legs resembling those of a crane, with hooves in place of feet. The couple watched it for 10 minutes before Evans banged on the window and it let out a harsh scream and flew off. The sightings spread with remarkable speed. In Coleswood, residents reported a creature perching on rooftops before flying toward the tree line. In Camden, a trolley car operator brought his vehicle to a full stop when he and his passengers saw a large, winged figure with hooved feet crossing the tracks ahead of them. The passengers later described the creature moving in an awkward hopping gait before taking flight. In West Coleswood, firefighters turned a hose on a creature perched on a building. It screeched and flew off. In Camden, the creature reportedly attacked before its owner drove the creature away. Patrolman Louis Strayer of Burlington fired his service revolver at a large bird-like animal he described as having the head of a collie dog. The shots appeared to have no effect. By the 20th and 21st of January, the panic had spread across 30 municipalities in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Delaware. Schools closed, factories closed, people armed themselves. Hunting parties organized and moved into the Pine Barrens. It was rumored, though never confirmed, that the Philadelphia Zoo posted a $10,000 reward for the creature's capture. The Philadelphia Inquirer ran front-page coverage under the headline, "What is it visits all South Jersey?" The creature acquired nicknames in the breathless newspaper copy of the period: the Flying Hoof, the Wazzlebug, the Gazook, the Jabberwock. Over 1,000 people claimed to have witnessed something during those 8 days. And then on January 24th, it all collapsed. A publicist named Norman Jeffries, who worked for the Ninth and Arch Museum in Philadelphia, a struggling venue badly in need of paying customers, announced that the Jersey Devil had been captured and was currently being exhibited at the museum. The attraction was a kangaroo purchased from a circus, fitted with fake claws and artificial bat wings. Crowds lined up to see it. The stunt worked exactly as intended and drove significant attendance. Jeffries later admitted the entire scheme was a deliberate hoax. His New York Times obituary noted this achievement directly, describing him as the man who had gained fame through the Jersey Devil hoax. Medical sociologist Robert Bartholomew has cited the 1909 wave of sightings as a textbook case of mass hysteria, a phenomenon in which fear and suggestion, amplified by newspaper coverage, create a feedback loop that produces genuine mass belief in something that may not exist. The most scientifically grounded natural explanation centers on the sandhill crane. These birds can stand nearly 4 feet tall with a wingspan exceeding 7 feet. They are not typically native to the Pine Barrens, but a displaced or migrating crane arriving in an unfamiliar area in winter would be a genuinely startling sight. Their cry is loud and rattling, easily interpreted as a scream. Their silhouette in flight seen at dusk or in poor visibility is prehistoric and unsettling. Whether it was mass hysteria, misidentification, or something else entirely, the Week of Terror in January 1909 established the Jersey Devil as a permanent fixture of American folklore, and sightings did not stop when the newspapers moved on. In 1927, a taxi driver in Salem City, New Jersey, reported that he was changing a flat tire late at night when strange screams erupted from the nearby woods. Moments later, a creature with bat-like wings and a horse-like head appeared, flew directly at him, and then vanished into the dark. The driver was badly shaken and reported the incident afterward. In December of 1925, a Greenwich Township farmer shot an unidentified animal that was attempting to steal his chickens. He photographed the corpse. He later claimed that he showed the photograph to 100 different people, and not one of them could identify what species it belonged to. In 1937, an animal with glowing red eyes was seen by multiple residents in Downingtown, Pennsylvania. A reporter for the Pennsylvania Bulletin drew the direct comparison to the Jersey Devil. In 1951, a group of boys in Gibbstown, New Jersey claimed to have seen a monster matching the creature's description. In 1957, what was reported to be a corpse matching the Jersey Devil's physical characteristics was found, though no scientific identification was ever made public. In 1960, the town of Mays Landing was shaken by a series of unexplained screams echoing through the night. Local police distributed flyers insisting the Jersey Devil was not real. A circus owner, apparently less concerned with reassuring the public than with making money, offered $100,000 for the creature's capture. The reward has never been claimed. In 1978, 2 teenage boys were ice skating near Chatsworth, deep in the Pine Barrens, when they were overwhelmed by a smell one described as dead fish. They looked up to find 2 red eyes staring at them from the tree line. They did not stay to investigate. The sightings continued through the 1980s and 1990s in smaller, less publicized clusters, reports of unidentified tracks in the sandy soil, screaming in the darkness, strange shapes moving through the fog at the edges of the wetlands. Then came October of 2015. A man named Dave Black, a security guard from Little Egg Harbor Township, was driving down Route 9 in Galloway on his way home from a shift in Atlantic City. It was early evening. He saw what he initially believed was a llama running through the trees alongside the road near a golf course. He was puzzled enough to slow down. Then, according to his account, the animal spread out leathery wings and flew off over the golf course. Black pulled out his phone and managed to take a photograph. The image showed a dark winged shape with what appeared to be fur, wings on its back, and cloven feet. The creature was described by Black as a large, flying mammal roughly the size of a deer. He sent the photo to members of the media, stating explicitly that the image had not been manipulated or staged. "People have said it's fake," Black told reporters. "But it's not. I'm honestly just looking for an explanation for what I saw." The photograph was picked up by ABC News, NBC New York, The Huffington Post, and BuzzFeed. It became a trending topic on social media. The story was even covered by Good Morning America. Cryptozoologists and paranormal researchers continue to investigate. A group called the Devil Hunters has been active for years, collecting reports, visiting documented sighting locations, and conducting nighttime searches. They have amassed a significant archive of testimonies. None of it, by the standards of science, constitutes proof. The New Jersey Devils hockey team, which joined the NHL in 1982 as the New Jersey franchise relocated from Colorado, took the creature as their mascot after a fan vote. In a small but telling way, that vote reflects something real about the relationship between New Jersey's identity and the creature that supposedly haunts its most mysterious landscape. The Jersey Devil is not a figure of embarrassment for locals. It is a point of pride. Nobody has caught it, nobody has killed it, nobody has produced undeniable evidence of its existence. But the reports keep coming year after year, decade after decade. Tracks in the sand that no one can identify, screams that wake people at 3 in the morning and leave them sitting up in the dark listening, and winged shapes flying through trees and over rooftops at dusk. Subscribe to Paranormal Depths for the strangest and most compelling cases from around the world.